What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to be discussing even more new iOS 26 features, new details about next week's Apple event, Apple's next AI feature that's coming pretty soon, bad news for the iPhone 17 prices, a crazy AirTag story, and more. Okay, so let's start by talking about what happened this week. So this week we did see iOS 26 Beta 9, a pretty rare 9th beta. We don't see that very often. We have had it before, but a lot of us expected it to go from Beta 8 to RC because that's what Apple has done for the past several years. But then again, liquid glass is not something we've seen for the past several years. This is the first big redesign really since iOS 7. So clearly, if there was going to be a Beta 9, it would be for this iOS 26 update, and that's exactly what we saw this week. Now, as far as what's new in Beta 9, if you guys watched my What's New video, there's really nothing that you can see. There's nothing visual that's changed in Beta 9, just like with Beta 8. There's a lot of back-end fixes, there's a lot of stability improvements, some slight performance and battery life improvements, very slight, but as far as anything else that's been discovered this week, there's nothing, because there really is nothing besides some back-end code changes. Like I've mentioned before, I think a lot of the changes that we'll actually be able to see are going to come in the RC build, the release candidate build after the iPhone event, when Apple typically shows off new features for the upcoming iPhone, and some of those features are, compatible with older devices, so we'll see those on our device with the RC build. And once again, there are some people saying that we've seen changes to liquid glass in the control center and in music and app store and things like that, but please do not listen to these people on Twitter. There are no changes in liquid glass from Beta 7 to 8 to 9. There's not been a change in liquid glass for a few betas now, so don't fall for that clickbait. I compare them side by side every single time a beta comes out. I would let you guys know if there is actually a difference. Now, as far as performance and battery life goes, I am running the Beta 9 on my main device right here, along with my test device and on my iPad, and I'm not going to waste your time here. There's really no difference in performance or battery life, and there hasn't been for the past couple of beta. So if there is a difference, it's very, very slight, but I've not noticed really any noticeable difference at all for the past few betas. And once again, we might see an improvement with the RC, but I would not really count on that. Typically, we see the bigger performance and battery life improvements, on the 0.1 or 0.2 updates. That's when it starts to become a little bit more noticeable. So we will see a small bump with the RC because technically we won't be on a beta if it's the final release, but don't expect any major jumps in performance or battery life until the later point updates. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what to expect next. I usually wait a little bit to talk about this, but next week is going to be the iPhone events. So we have to talk about that because we are going to see the RC build of iOS 26 after that iPhone 17 event, which is on September 9th. That is on a Tuesday. And then we should be seeing the final public release for iOS 26 the following Monday, on Monday, September 15th. That's when all the software is most likely going to get released from Apple. And then of course we will see the iPhone 17s and all the other products release most likely on September 19th, that Friday. And then I would expect iOS 26.1 Beta 1 to come out on the week of September 15th as well, after the big 26.0 release. Now also this week we did see a pretty big launch for the iPad because we finally got Instagram for iPad. Yes, Meta officially launched a brand new iPad application for Instagram. And this is kind of, some people don't love it because they don't think it looks great. And also it opens up to Reels by default. So you have to scroll through all the Reels. Some people don't like looking at Reels on Instagram, but this is a new application. I did make a full short form video on this if you want to check it out on my Instagram. I'm just at Brandon Butch on Instagram. You can see that over there. Instagram themselves actually commented on that video. But yeah, that launched this week. So if you do have an iPad, update the Instagram application in the App Store and you will see this new Instagram application. It's not just a iPhone port anymore. It's a full-blown iPadOS app now. Now, if we head into the Games application on our iOS 26 device and take a look at that, you can see the bubble is kind of covering over the P right there. Interesting. Anyways, in iOS 26, if you go into the Games application and go to Apple Arcade, we did get some new Apple Arcade games. If you are an Apple, Arcade subscriber, we do have some new games here. So we have NFL Retro Bowl 26, which is one of my favorite games, by the way, especially offline when you're flying. Retro Bowl Apple is amazing. So that's a new one. Also Jeopardy Daily and My Talking Tom Friends Plus. So those are the 3 new games that have just launched on Apple Arcade this week. Now, if we head into our settings and go to Apple Intelligence and Siri, let's talk about a new Apple Intelligence feature that's coming in the next several months. So most likely in March of 2026, we're going to see a new AI feature from Apple, because we got a report this week from Mark Gurman that says LLM Siri with World Knowledge Search is coming early next year. So he said this: Apple is working on a new system that's dubbed internally as World Knowledge Answers that will be integrated into the Siri voice assistant. Apple has also discussed eventually adding this technology to its Safari web browser and Spotlight. The idea is to make Siri and Apple's operating systems a place where users can look up information from across the internet in a similar fashion to ChatGPT, AI overviews, and Google search, and a crop of new applications. And of course, this will rely on LLMs. Now, here's what's interesting. He says the underlying technology enabling the new Siri could come in part from Google, and he says that the companies reached a formal agreement this week for Apple to evaluate and test a Google-developed AI model to help power the voice assistant. And the reason that's important is because if you guys remember a couple weeks back when we first heard about Apple potentially using Gemini, to power LLM Siri, at that point there were no real talks. There was preliminary talks, but there wasn't really any type of agreement or anything like that. But in this report, Gurman kind of sneakily says that they actually reached an agreement now. So it looks like Gemini will be at least somewhat powering the new Siri. Now, of course, it will be custom. It will be Apple and Google working together on it, but still pretty interesting. And the report also says Apple's new search experience will include an interface that makes use of text, photos, video, and local points of interest. It also will offer an AI-powered summarization system designed to make results more quickly digestible and more accurate than what's offered by the current Siri. So I am pretty excited for this. So I don't think Apple is going to acquire Perplexity or Anthropic or anything like that anymore. They're just becoming more valuable, but Apple is going to apparently get on board with something similar. We should see a much better version of Siri come iOS 26.4 in March, but fingers crossed that we do not see another delay. Now, also this week, we saw a pretty interesting launch because Dolby Vision 2 was launched this week with a more powerful image engine that Dolby says unlocks even more out of your TV. Plus, it supports new content intelligence tools to optimize TV sets for captivating picture based on the content that's being watched. So this is just going to be better than Dolby Vision 1. Obviously, it's just the 2nd generation, and this is going to be a hardware feature, so we will have to wait until the next Apple TV to see support for this. But I'm sure the next Apple TV will support Dolby Vision 2. Okay, so next week is the iPhone event, and I'm sure there's going to be some last-second leaks, but we have some last-minute leaks right now. So typically before the iPhones launch, we see some leaks like the day before or even the day of. So I'm sure I might be making another video on that, but for now, we have last-minute leaks, not last-second leaks. So anyway, so we did see this week from Instant Digital, he said, or this report says on Weibo, that we're going to see higher brightness on the iPhone 17s, better battery life, and here's something interesting: the frame rate of intense games will be more stable thanks to the device's redesigned thermal architecture, and also frame drops and lag will occur much less frequently. There's also going to be better performance when shooting 4K 60 video in warm outdoor conditions. So some pretty specific changes mentioned here from Instant Digital, which leads me to believe that these are actually going to be happening with this new iPhone, which not too surprising, and hopefully this is going to be, kind of playing in part with the thermal system that's going to be on the iPhone 17 Pros and the vapor chamber cooling. Now, here's what's interesting. So a lot of people have said that the iPhone 17 might not be a big update. Oh, it's not worth it to update if you have an iPhone 16. However, a new survey shows that nearly 70% of users plan on upgrading to an iPhone 17. And this survey comes from CellCell, and they surveyed over 2,000 US-based iPhone users in August to basically kind of gauge the interest in getting an iPhone 17. And you can see at 68.3% of current iPhone users intend to buy an iPhone 17, which is an increase from about 62% last year. And of course, battery life is the most important upgrade driver, with 53% of people who responded to this saying that that's their top reason for upgrading. And of course, the price of the iPhones is the number one reason for people not upgrading, which they're going to be pretty disappointed because this year we're also hearing that the iPhone 17 Pro could be $200 more than the iPhone 16 Pro. We're talking about the base model here. However, Apple is apparently planning on updating the storage to double. So it's going to be 256 gigs now instead of 128 like we saw on the iPhone 16 Pro. And this report comes from TrendForce. So we've seen kind of prices all over the place. We saw like JP Morgan say it's going to be $100 more. We've seen people say it's going to be $50 more. Now we're seeing TrendForce really close to the event saying it's going to be $200 more for the base 17 Pro. So it's all over the place. But at this point, it seems inevitable that we are going to see a price increase for the Pro models this year. Now, also I've had a lot of people asking me and kind of curious about the iPhone 17 Air. Like, what's that going to be priced like? How much is the storage going to go up to? And also from TrendForce, they're saying that the iPhone 17 Air could start at $1099 with 256 gigs of storage, and then it can go up to 1 terabyte for $1499. I do not know who on planet Earth would spend $1,500 on an Air model when you can get a Pro Max for that price with less storage, but nonetheless, that is what we are hearing right now. But keep in mind that prices are one thing that almost never really leaks ahead of time. Like, there's just a lot of guesses, a lot of analysts kind of guessing what the price increase is going to be, but at the end of the day, most people don't know what that price is going to be until the day of the event. Now, also at this event next week, we're almost certainly going to see the AirPods Pro 3, which are going to be extremely popular. The AirPods Pro 2 are one of the best Apple products ever made, and we're hearing now that it is going to have the 2 new health sensors, but the live translation feature might be delayed. And this was according to an anonymous tip received by 9to5Mac, basically saying that the live translation feature that we saw the leaked image of a couple weeks back, that's not coming with the launch of the AirPods Pro 3. It's probably just going to come in a later software update. And then the other new product coming next week at the Apple event is going to be the Apple Watch Series 11 and the Apple Watch Ultra 3. And we actually just saw the new Garmin watch beat Apple to the market with a satellite connected smartwatch. This, of course, is going to be one of the big features for the Apple Watch Ultra 3 is that you'll have satellite connectivity, but Garmin beat Apple to the punch this time. And Garmin's watch is the Fenix 8 Pro, and this is the first smartwatch to have in-reach satellite and cellular connectivity. So it's basically going to be used for, handheld navigation, and you can send location check-ins and text messages over satellite using the Garmin Messenger app. So I'm sure we will see something pretty similar with the Apple Watch Ultra 3, which I cannot wait for. Now, looking a little bit further ahead, Ming-Chi Kuo this week released a pretty interesting article, basically reiterating what we know about the iPhone Fold coming next year. But what's interesting is that he mentions that we're going to see an iPad Fold in 2028. And in this report, Kuo says that GIS is going to work with Corning on the cutting, the corner treatments, inspection, packaging, and shipping of both of these foldable models. And he also says that Apple is going to use ultra-thin cover glass for both the foldable iPhone and the foldable iPad. But this glass is not cheap because he says the complexity of its back-end processing is substantially higher than that of conventional smartphone cover glass, which cost estimated to be 2 to 4 times greater. So these fold models are definitely going to be expensive. And then he says Apple recently revised its shipment forecast for the foldable iPhone upward to 8 to 10 million units in 2026 and 20 to 25 million in 2027. So before it was 6 to 8 million and 10 to 15 million. So a pretty big jump. And he says that will significantly boost demand for relatively low yield UTG. And as far as the foldable iPad, which is a little bit further out in 2028, that's expected to ship 500,000 to 1 million units in 2028. And it says due to its larger area, its UTG price will be considerably higher than that of the foldable iPhone. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Apple does this whole fold rollout. And if it's going to be another Vision Pro type product that everybody thinks is just way too overpriced. I don't really see that happening. I think this is going to be better and more popular than almost everybody thinks, but we'll have to wait and see. And then also Ming-Chi Kuo mentions the Apple Vision Air that's coming in 2027. So he's saying that this will address the high weight and price of the Vision Pro. The new device is estimated to be over 40% lighter and more than 50% cheaper. That is a significant change there. And he says that Vision Air shipments are anticipated to reach 1 million units in 2027 versus existing models with shipments below 400,000 total. And he says that GIS is only responsible for the lamination of the current Vision Pro and its upcoming M5 version coming later this year. year, and it's also going to become the sole supplier of the pancake lenses for the Vision Air, replacing the incumbent. And he says that this vertical integration with its lamination business is poised to boost profitability. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really too excited for the M5 Vision Pro coming later this year. I'm a lot more excited for the Vision Air coming in a couple of years. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a man was flying back home to Los Angeles from Salt Lake City when his suitcase was stolen right out of baggage claim. And he knew this because he was searching through multiple carousels for his luggage, but he was not able to find it. So he decided to pull out his phone and pull up the Find My application because he had an AirTag inside of his luggage. And sure enough, when he pulled up Find My, he noticed that it was pinging from a location that was moving away from the airport. So he instantly called an Uber and he sprinted over to the rideshare lot and eventually got in an Uber and followed the signal while his partner called the LAPD. And apparently this Uber driver was just down to help him with this because he took him all the way to an abandoned building nearby, which is where the AirTag signal was lost. And inside of this abandoned building were multiple people. So when the police arrived, they lined up several of those people that were inside. And that's when Scott, the man who had his luggage stolen, noticed that one of these people lined up was literally wearing his clothes from his luggage. So police were able to detain several individuals, and while Scott's suitcase had been destroyed, they were able to destroy it, he was able to recover most of his belongings scattered throughout the building. So I don't know how dumb you can be to wear the suspect's clothes when you're trying to get away with stealing it, but nonetheless, without the AirTag, they definitely would have never found it in this abandoned building in LA. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Next week is going to be a lot more exciting. I promise you, we're going to see the new iPhones. We're going to have a lot to talk about in Apple Weekly. If we even have an Apple Weekly next week, there's going to be so much going on that we may have to skip it. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think so. I'm going to make sure to get that to you guys, but I'm just saying it's going to be a busy next month, really. So hope you guys are here for the ride. I really appreciate the support as always. I need it more than ever in September. So always appreciate you guys. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.